Thanks very much. Thanks for turning up. Big party last night. Really appreciate your time. Watch this quick video, and then we'll have a chat about it.
Everything you need to make customer interactions more meaningful is already out there. It's inside an invisible world of data being created by your products, mobile devices, websites, sensors, and more. Salesforce IoT Cloud connects this massive stream of data to your company and all of your Salesforce apps. Now, with the new intuitive point-and-click UI, anyone can easily listen to this data, design real-time engagement rules, and automate smart actions personalized to connect you with your customer, like alerting rideshare passengers about upcoming traffic delays and drivers about high-demand locations. Having thermostats that will know when to contact homeowners with alerts, sales reps with upsell opportunities, or service technicians with new cases. Giving airlines agents a head start on rebooking delayed customers while they're still in the air. Allowing entire fleets of vehicles to be tracked in real time, adding a whole new level of accuracy to deliveries. Automating wind turbines to modify their own behavior based on changing weather patterns. And since the IoT cloud is powered by Thunder, it'll capture, filter, and respond to billions of events instantly, making it one of the world's most scalable event processing engines in the cloud. Now everything is connected in the Internet of Things with the Salesforce IoT Cloud.
Thank you very much. That's about salesy as it gets, I'm afraid. If you want to see products and stuff, we can do that later on. I'm perfectly happy to do that. That's not what today's about. My name's Jeremy Waite. I'm the head of digital strategy at Salesforce. Really, all that means, I'm an evangelist. I just travel around telling stories about what it is that we do and why do we do it, how you join up all this data together, and really what's the impact when people do that. We have the luxury of being one of the biggest companies in the world, working with most of the biggest brands in the world. So I was thought today I'd try and tell some stories about what happens when you join this stuff together. So it's not going to be a technical discussion. I saw yesterday there was a lot of platforms and schemas and different stacks about how all this stuff plugs together. I want to try and get you guys thinking differently a little bit, hopefully try and inspire you a tiny bit. And really just I want to lead on towards something that's happened in healthcare that we did completely by accident. We kind of stumbled upon this thing and didn't really mean to build it. So I'm going to try and show you a whole load of other stuff, and hopefully it's going to mean something to you guys and really drive a conversation for the rest of the day, because there's a lot of incredible speakers to come as well. Although I've got to admit, I wasn't sure I was in the right place. I checked Twitter yesterday, and there was a whole load of talk about connected sex toys and hashtag dick data. I was like, shit, was that something going on in the next room? I turned up late last night. I was like, damn, I'm not entirely sure I'm in the right place. Listen, what I thought we should do, a lot of you guys are going to know who this is, Jeff Ammerbacher. We have a lot of technology and we do a lot of incredible stuff, but what often we talk about is how to build profitable relationships or how to build loyal relationships. How do we make more money with what we've got? How do we monetize? I speak to a lot of people that are already setting up for IPOs, and it's all about the exit and stuff. But we don't talk enough about how to build a meaningful relationship. And this is a chap that whenever you speak to him, you're always left with this sense of, I need to provide more meaning. I need to build something that matters. He was the first ever data scientist at Facebook. He's the guy responsible for your newsfeed. All the algorithms on the right-hand side, all the ads, who shows what, where it is that they live, what it is that they do, all the content that gets cut out, and the brands are now trying to beat this algorithm. Years ago, we used to call it the EdgeRank algorithm, when you saw maybe 16%. You paid for all these fans, you only saw, only that many of the people actually saw your content. So Jeff was responsible for this, and he left in 2008. He left just before the IPO, which was insane, right? Because, Facebook was about to float. It was going to make a ton of money. And he wasn't a rich guy, by the way. This is a guy that's got an Excel spreadsheet that matches the amount of calories in his favorite foods to the cost, so that he can code as late as possible, as long as possible, with the maximum amount of energy for the shortest amount of price, right? So he's not got much money, and he left. Analysts say he left about 100 million on the table. He was interviewed by Emily Chang at Bloomberg, and she said, Jeff, why did you leave? You left all this money on the table. And he said, it sucks that the greatest minds of my generation are trying to get people to click more ads, which is what we do a lot. I've come from Facebook. I was head of strategy at Adobe. A lot of what we do in our industry, even though I know a lot of you guys are doing the science behind what's going on, we're still trying to get people to click more ads. And it should be about finding meaning. It should be about finding purpose. What I want to try and lead into in this journey, I want to try and take you on over sort of 25 minutes or so, is how can we find meaning in the data? How can we try and do something useful? I'm very privileged to work for a company that gives away most of its profits. We give away a lot of our products. 26,000 organizations have our technology for free, including healthcare and hospitals and non-profits and charities. We give away 1% of our time and 1% of our equity. It's about $250,000. Each time, I think we've given away 250 million worth of product this year. And you can see we've had 1.1 million service hours. The reason that we do this, and I don't mean to be all braggy about it, this isn't an ego chest bumping, yay, Salesforce is amazing, which obviously we are. We want to make a shitload of money, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want to make a ton of money so we can give more away. And by giving more away, we create these business models that people want to copy. So this is why we've got the 1-on-1 model. It's been adopted by Splunk and a load of people up there that you can see. How do we give away things to find more meaning and to find more purpose? Well, this is really the theme on what I wanted to share with you today. This isn't about the technology we've got. In fact, we don't even look at product stacks at all. We're just very cheesy, I know, very American. We call it the customer success platform. But we don't really care about which products you buy. It's like, how do we solve for the biggest problem, then reverse engineer what different technologies we're going to plug in. On top of that, we're essentially just a massive database full of APIs, and people are building some pretty cool stuff on it. Uber's built on our platform. Everything from the Sony PlayStation, all of that information, all that gaming data comes through our platform in order to serve out emails and push notifications and texts and dynamic content and stuff. 120 million unique customer journeys, totally individualized, automated every single day, all done via the cloud. It used to take them 12 weeks to build campaigns, now it takes them 12 hours. So we've got a lot of people building some interesting stuff. I could talk to you about Analytics Cloud later. It's only interesting because when we launched it, it was the only 100% cloud-based analytics platform. I don't know if it still is anymore, but we essentially recruited a whole load of Sony PlayStation designers to come and build what we thought would be the best analytics platform, just to try and visualize the data a little bit faster. But rather than just show you some of the tech, I thought it might be interesting just to try and set this up to mention a couple of clients and what they've done with it. Like, what's the impact about having this kind of technology at your disposal? So GE is an interesting company, right? 6th biggest company in the world. Even their brand alone is worth about $146 billion. Beautiful quote from ex-chairman of IBM: machines should be nothing more than tools for extending the powers of the humans that use them. GE connects an awful lot of stuff. We have this IoT cloud, which is essentially a connector between sales, service, marketing, apps, analytics, and communities. And GE plug all of their data from across the social web, purchase, contact, customer data, and even locomotives. What they're finding in the case of connecting a train, for every 1 mile an hour, they can make it go faster. For each 1 mile an hour each train, they make an extra $200 million. They do the DNX engines on Dreamliners. They've got Dreamliners actually connected to social networks in order to predict when a plane needs to be serviced. And obviously that's going to have a lot of implications in service savings. Keeps a plane in the air for as long as possible, and it helps provide fuel efficiencies when they're looking at passengers. Have they got the right engine? Is it performing in the right way? GE's finding out that for every 1% fuel efficiency, airline industry is going to make an extra $3 billion. That's a big deal. But look at it like this. You talk about taking data and visualizing it faster. And this was the best stat that I saw. It used to take GE 30 days to get all the data back. By the time the scientists had pulled it and they'd got it on the dashboards, they'd visualized it, they'd gone backwards and forwards and segmented it and then done it for a different market, a different region, up to 30 days. And often they're trying to innovate faster, they're trying to retain the best talent, they're trying to provide the best products. Went from 30 days to 3 seconds by doing it all in the cloud. I saw it's about, I could show you later if you're interested, about 300 million lines of unstructured data every second, all being pulled into a phone, don't even use laptops anymore. And I asked them the other day, what's this worth? What's the net value to GE as a company as a result of being able to serve your information and your data faster? And they say they've built $256 billion in pipeline over the next 5 years as a direct result of being able to visualize it faster and then pass on those savings to their customers. And they're doing a lot of that around the data lakes. I know you guys are quite familiar with that. But this is why I love this quote, and I spend most of my time in the marketing world. I spend a lot of my time really with brand marketers and with CMOs and CTOs and trying to make more business cases. And everyone's competing against each other, and they forget that really we're competing against speed. aren't we? You know, this isn't about, you look at the number one in the marketplace, they're always looking forward. Number two, I work with Apple a lot. They don't do competitive analysis. You go to Samsung and they're completely obsessed by it. It's the same in the motor industry. If you compare maybe Ford to the second in the industry in certain segments, hundreds and hundreds of pages of competitive analysis. But yet, number one, let's stay focused on our customers. Everyone else can stay focused on us. Well, that's what Jeff Bezos said, wasn't it? So I like this idea. So if you think about technology, if you think about what it is, we talk about simplifying complexity. That's essentially our jobs. It's not actually that complicated when you look at a technology stack. I mean, this, and by all means, this is like, I've super simplified this. So no, you guys would maybe prefer sometimes to go a lot deeper, but just to try and set the scene, this is all that we do. It doesn't matter what product you have at Salesforce. Every single one is really just taking those real-time events, the data scientists and the teams and the agents and all the other third-party data that you can plug in, whether it's SAP and Teradata and all the other cool stuff. Scientists are going to figure out what those audiences are, what are the triggers, what's the emotional behavior, where are people going, what did they do 15 minutes ago, how do you take all of that in order to compute the right message to the right person at the right time? When we know our consumers are on these, average attention span is now 5 seconds. So we've got to tell stories in swipes. How do we get someone's attention when we're telling stories in swipes? You know, we're trying to deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. It's not complicated, but if you look at the way that consumers are acting in 2015, and certainly the way that they're going to go in 2016, I was talking to Google about this, and they were telling me that when you look at the most emotional content, and also when you look at somebody making a purchasing decision, 90% of consumers now cross at least 5 separate channels. This is why you've got to join up sales, service, marketing, analytics teams. They all need to sit together. The biggest challenge that I have is trying to break down those organizational silos. It's not actually dealing with the technology. We've got people problems. We don't have technology problems. How do we try and make sense of all this stuff and join up our email and our social and our mobile and our web and all of our connected products and put them together? Because essentially, this is all we're trying to do. Doesn't matter what your job title is. Doesn't matter what it says on LinkedIn. Our only job is to tell better stories. We've got to tell those stories by remembering that the audience is the most important part of those stories, and we tell those stories in a 5-second attention span as fast and as compellingly as possible. And ultimately, we're just trying to go from the left to the right. Yeah? Well, from a place where we know nothing about our consumers to a place where we know everything about them. In the case of Sony PlayStation or Live Nation, the biggest event management database in the world, in some cases, they know 4,000 to 5,000 things, 4,000 attributes or more about their customers, so they can serve exactly the right message at the right time, which is easy to do that, right? The problem that we've got in the middle, and this is what we'll see played out in 2016, 2017, is a little arrow in the middle, because if you imagine that the far right is personalization, the bit in the middle, Gartner's calling personification. This is people who don't want to give their data because they're scared of privacy. And there's trust issues, and there's brands, we would like them to go to the right as quickly as possible, but we know people make emotional decisions, personification. How do we give someone the right message on the right device, the right channel at the right time, when we don't know email, mobile, date of birth, where they live? You know, Google, before you've even checked in, they know 57 things about you. How do we try and take this data? So these are all the kind of things that we've been trying to build into our platform, and I really want to try and show you where this is going in a second, because we've taken these technologies and thought, well, how have they got implications across other industries? How can we try and do something more useful with them? Because technology, when it works properly, is beautiful. My favorite quote in the world. It's like magic, as Steve Jobs used to say. You know, we put in these command centers. This is the one at Dell. And by the way, I realize there's a whole load of content. I just put all my favorite slides together for you guys. This is on SlideShare right now, slideshare.net/Jeremy Waite. If you want all the slides, you're welcome to have them and download them if you find them at all useful. This is the command center at Dell in Austin, in Texas, and they've put sales, service, marketing together. It was one of the first of its kind. It was so successful, they wrote a whole book about it, Ultimate Question 2.0. It was the first big command center. They made $65 million in cost savings in the first year, $165 million in ROI in the second year. They just joined together. Sales, service, and marketing started doing customer data, you know, customer insights and service faster. In real time. It's been adopted by a whole load of stuff. They used to have 256 different metrics. They told me recently there's now 425 different metrics that can be measured in marketing alone. But actually the best companies that we work with only measure for 5 of them. Who are our customers? What did they say? Why did they say these things? Where did these conversations take place and why? How can we figure out the predictive analytics? And we've got a talk coming up next, a thing about prescriptive. It's no good knowing what we're going to do. It's like, what are we going to do with that information? What's going to happen next? Sometimes you don't need to know 5,000 things about your customers. You just need to know what they were most emotional about 15 minutes ago and serve them a message based upon that. So this is about all of this intelligence and trying to make something useful with it. Obviously, now we don't need the big command centers. Now we can run our business from our phones and our tablets. At Salesforce, we're getting rid of all of our laptops. I have absolutely everything that I do on here. I only use my laptops for building presentations now. Everything is based upon, how we run our business from our phones, and obviously smart people are building our SDK kits and running our businesses from our wrists. And the biggest success that I've seen within data teams is when they've been able to do those triggered events and give them to their bosses and their bosses' bosses, and they put just the right message at the right time to their boss's wrist, and this has unlocked all kinds of budgets around more headcount and more content and better technologies because they feel like they're in control. Whereas historically, this is about how do we help our executives to be more inspired. We sometimes forget about this when we're in, solving for all these important challenges and problems, because executives in 2015, according to PwC, 4 out of 5 of them, 80% of executives, are overwhelmed and underprepared for the challenges their business is going to face over the next 5 years. You guys have got the talent and the skills to be able to help them through that, but often they're the roadblock to getting good stuff happening in companies. We're seeing already that the Apple Watch and things like this are the best way of trying to help encourage executives to feel more in control. And a lot of it's because of big data. I was trying to think of that there's going to be a million slides showing at you and a million different bullet points with all the stats, but the nicest one that I thought, I put this little visual together for you just because I thought it'd be fun and it's nice and memorable. If you imagine all the data that's created, if you set a high-def video camera going when the dinosaurs died out and kept it running to today, 100 million years, 4K video, that's the amount of data that we now produce in 1 year. Scientists will say things like, 90% of the world's data didn't exist 12 months ago. Last year we said 90% of the world's data didn't exist 2 years ago. A couple of my friends at 422 South, this is the Berlin traffic system at the moment. This is real-time data from a couple of days ago of the traffic systems, and you look at all of that data, all the different things that we can connect, all the things that we can plug in, and we've got to try and find some meaning in this data and try and do something useful with it. I was speaking to this about Google, and they were saying, the digital universe is going to be 40 times bigger by 2020. This is why there's such a problem. It was like, put that into context for me when I'm speaking to an executive or when I'm trying to speak to someone to invest more in data and analytics. And they said, look, this is equivalent to 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is now produced every day. So you mathematicians will know that's 18 zeros. That's a company the size of Google is now being created every 4 days. And it's our job to try and make sense of that. And we've got 120 million cyber attacks a day, 50 billion connected devices, et cetera, et cetera. You know a lot of this stuff. There's a huge amount of stuff going on. And we're talking about IoT and big data and customer centricity. Only 0.06% of all the products that could be connected are connected, and this is why people are so terrified. I know that you know this. This is almost about giving you guys confidence to go out and tell other people, right? This is like the evangelism about we've got to go and preach this stuff to our bosses and the guys that don't understand all the things that we're doing because they are terrified. And really, I like the take from Robert Scoble. He says there's no such thing as big data. There's only lots of small spoonfuls of data. We don't actually have big data problems. We have filter failure. How do we break everything down to give the right message to the right person at the right time? Quite sure you're all thinking, what the fuck has this got to do with healthcare? I'll get to that in a second. This is all that we're trying to do. Whenever I describe this to other people and we talk about how do we sell in, we look at infrastructure at Coca-Cola and GE and Microsoft and all the biggest companies in the world, it just comes down to this. And we have a 250 slide deck on this. I like the way that it's just described in this one slide. It's the best description that I've seen of big data, single view, whatever we call it. These data scientists will talk about volume and velocity and variety, how fast, how much, how accurate. All that we're trying to do is connect all of our contact data to all of our purchase data. That's typically all businesses are trying to do. 40% of companies don't know the lifetime value of their customer. You join those two up, you can start to understand that. 500 million social networks, blogs, and forums, and then connect everything, whether that's a wristband, whether that's a tablet dispenser, whether that's a Tesla, whether that's your mobile analytics or a Nest device or a wind farm. It doesn't matter. This is our only job, is to join these 4 data sets together. I believe. One of the problems that we have, and this will mean more to some of you than others, depending upon what industry you're in 2016, they claim about 77% of consumer conversations are going to be invisible. So all that stuff that we saw before about trying to measure networks and trying to put the big command centers in to see where people are going and what they're doing and trying to figure out the predictive about where they're going to go next, 77% is going to be dark because people don't like giving their data. It's all going to be messaging apps. It's all going to be Snapchat and seeing a Weibo and WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, even copy and pasting a URL and putting it into an email, all the stuff that we can't see. I teach at Tel Aviv University sometimes about counterterrorism, and that gives a whole new meaning to try and listen to the data and trying to do something useful with it. But essentially, it's just joining this stuff together. It's just that a lot of it over the next 2 years is going to go invisible. We can't measure it. That's got huge implications for what it is that we do. So, where does this go? Because this is all important stuff, right? We've got all of this data at our disposal. I think sometimes we forget the responsibility that we've got to do something useful with it. That's why I love this quote from my friend Avinash. He's the evangelist at Google. Information is powerful, but it's how we will use it that defines us. So, for the next few minutes, let me just try and pivot a little bit, because if you imagine we've set the scene, we've looked at the way that we measure data, we've looked at who, what, why, where, and when. We're measuring Twitter, and we're taking in social networks, we're plugging in Sony PlayStations, and we're plugging in all sorts of connected fridges for Coca-Cola. We thought, what happened if you start plugging in hospital beds? And what happened if we started plugging in wearable devices? We found out, actually, there's exactly the same amount of data that comes off a hospital bed than comes off Twitter. About 8,000 data points every second. Well, we thought, well, that's interesting. What if we're looking at the amount of decisions? You know, we have to give the right message to the right person at the right time. Historically, that's all any organization's trying to do, is we tell our stories better. Average 20-bed intensive care unit measures about 2.3 million decisions every single year. This isn't just you get the message wrong and someone doesn't click on your stuff. You know, they don't buy more ads and they don't go off and have some more eyeballs on your thing. This is people dying, right? This is huge implications. And don't get me wrong, kind of Salesforce has gone through this journey, and we've been discovering this as much as anything. We've just been trying to think, how can we just be the thin technology layer, the enabler to help other people do cool stuff with our things? So we thought, you know what, let's see if this works. So we took it to the NHS. National Healthcare Service in the UK, fantastic service. You know, it's troubled with budgets, as is often the case, facing a deficit of $250 million at the moment. We were thinking about, you know, what's the one thing that maybe some of this technology could do to help, you know, save lives or to help save money? And the NHS were looking at appointments. People don't keep appointments. It's where they lose most of their money, right? We all know that. It's consistent across hospitals across the world. And we started putting some of this listening technology in, and we found out something completely different. We found out, actually, one of the things that people are doing a lot of, especially when they can't speak English, they're trying to search for the thing that they want, and maybe their kid's got something wrong with them that's not actually that bad. They don't need to go to hospital, but you're speaking Urdu, you're kind of searching, you can't find what you want. NHS webpage has got 67,000 pages in its portal, 67,000 pages. People don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, they don't know what to click on, they get nervous. What's the first thing that you'd do if you couldn't speak the language, or if you didn't want to speak to someone on the phone, or you can't find a result? You go to hospital, you call an ambulance, or you turn up, even if it's something minor. It's £55 for every paracetamol, it's £600 for every ambulance. What we found out is if we could use one of those command centers, and we could have people responding in real time, within seconds, just like KLM do, and Starbucks and Dell, and we could take community managers, and there's elements of machine learning, and there's a lot of automation we can do, obviously, around the language processing, but we could serve them to the right piece of content. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a web page, maybe that'd keep them out of hospital. And we found straight away in the first test that we did, which is still, this is a process we're going through, so this is all pretty new stuff. For every 1% of the UK population that stays out of hospital, saves the NHS £200 million. This is data scientists saving a ton of money, potentially keeping people out of hospital, improving not just patient care, but improving the quality of care, because people can spend more time on the stuff that matters, right? This is really, really important stuff. So we thought, well, instead of taking a marketing cloud that's measuring Facebook, or a sales cloud, or a service cloud that's helping you serve or promote things faster or sell more stuff, let's build a health cloud. It's exactly the same thing, and this is my challenge to you guys as much as anything. We've got to figure out what are these things we're going to plug together, and what is it that we're going to build. You know, we've got the biggest B2B app marketplace in the world. You can plug all sorts of stuff in. You know, like we said, Uber's built on our platform. Uber's, I think, going for $1 billion funding at the moment. It's going to be valued in 3 weeks at between $60 and $70 billion. Taking on 50,000 jobs a month at the moment. Travis said he's taking on 1,000 engineers this month alone. It's just an insane amount, fastest growing company by far. So we were just like, well, how do we create cool stuff? So we built this thing. Let me just show you this 60-second video, and then we'll wrap things up and have a chat.
With Salesforce Health Cloud, caregivers can focus on keeping the patient at the center of care. Easily browse tasks, review all the conversations regarding your patients, and see your assigned patients with a clear priority of tasks that need attention, all from the Today page. Patient profiles give you a panoramic view of your patients with rich, contextual data from electronic medical records, like their conditions, medications, and communication preferences. And you can review the collaborative care timeline to get a complete view of the patient history, including clinical and engagement events. Wearable device data is integrated directly into Health Cloud, so you have access to relevant patient data, like glucose levels and sleep data, to inform smart care decisions. Click on the patient's collaboration and activity tab to view their professional care network and personal care network from the caregiver team map. And you can immediately share information with the primary care physician without ever leaving the patient profile. Then, the physician can even respond quickly using any device. Using Salesforce Communities, you can communicate easily with patients, sending secure messages, surveys, and appointment reminders directly to patients and their caregiver networks. And patients can simply access those messages and take actions like completing a pre-visit survey directly from their mobile device. Now, caregivers are able to focus on patient relationships, not records. Deliver smart patient care with Health Cloud from Salesforce.
And that wasn't actually what I wanted to show you. I mean, that's really cool. That's just taking that same technology and doing something interesting with it, but it gets even better. That command center that we saw before, we thought, well, let's put that in a kid's bedroom. This is one I took a photo of the other day at UCSF Children's Hospital. This is everything from Spotify and Netflix connected to all their wearable data, to everything that's coming off the devices, to tablet dispensers. This is their caregiver network. This is even taking in medical research data. This can be linked with Watson, even all that diagnoses that's coming in from the 10 million people that have suffered with this thing before. They can order meals. They can video chat. Their mum and dad can log in from their phone from anywhere. They can turn on and off the preferences if they're watching bad things. Or they want to listen to something different. Obviously, all the caregivers, the GPs, everybody can see this in real time. Even Philips are now looking at this and reckoning that they can predict heart attacks to within about 2 hours, which is pretty amazing stuff. It gets even better because what we did, I mentioned at the beginning how the goal is to make a lot of money, right? We want to make a ton of money, and we're not ashamed of that, but we like the idea of making more money so that you can give more away. This is the UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital. So the money that we've claimed, the money that we've got through sales, service, and marketing, 15 years, biggest cloud company in the world, fastest growing enterprise software company in the world. We're doing some cool stuff. We'd put our profits into this. We were like, how can we provide meaning and purpose in what it is that we do? $2 billion, the world's first connected hospital. Everything behind the scenes is robots. You see at the bottom. This is the robots emptying bins. They even call their own lifts. They're taking the food and all the menial tasks. All that patient information. You imagine the one thing that a child's most scared of when he's going into an MRI scanner, and it's all white and it's really big and scary. Remember we said we could take the data, thousands of things we know about a customer to serve a good experience. The entire MRI scanner room, if Gruffalo is his favorite character, it could change and feel like he's walking into the woods, and the MRI scanner's now this little den with foxes and badgers all over it, and the kid's having the best experience ever. It's about 600 million of this is through philanthropy. My boss, Mark, didn't even want to put his name on the hospital. The hospital said you should do it because it's going to encourage more people to give away more stuff, because what we stand for is more important than what we sell. And I don't mean this to be braggy, I just thought it was fascinating, the fact that we've gone on this journey almost by accident and invented a health cloud that came out of sales and marketing technologies, but we've given the money back and we've started to do some interesting things, and we hope that other people are going to want to copy the model that we've done. Why is this interesting? Because technology is nothing. We just provide some tools. A lot of vendors here doing some exciting stuff with you guys. This is my favorite quote. What we need to remember: people problems, not technology problems. Have faith in people, that they're good and smart. If we give them the right tools, they're going to do something wonderful with them. Remember I told you about Jeff at the beginning? Is anyone from Cloudera here? Cloudera is like one of my favorite companies. I saw the logo somewhere. Jeff Hammerbacher, he left, and he left his money on the table, and he lost his 100 million. He went off to be the data scientist at Mount Sinai Children's Hospital. He was like, we need to find more purpose in our data. We need to do something more impressive. He's now working with a medical research scientist at Mount Sinai, figuring out a cure for Alzheimer's, Crohn's, and Parkinson's disease. He founded Cloudera with a couple of other people. It's just been valued last week at $5 billion. This is how do we find purpose in what it is that we do. So for my last slide, my son was so inspired by Jeff that he started a couple of weeks ago doing data science, the only data science course in the UK, about a 1% acceptance rate. He was like, I want to do something useful and something meaningful with my life. And I talked him through this thing. He was like, look, this is it. This is what it is all about. How do we tell better stories? This is the one slide, if I was you guys, when I get the most enjoyment and I see the most rewarding stuff when I'm working with other executives, it's try and fill in this one sentence. It's the hardest thing in the world. I try and get executives to do it. It's good for brands. It's good for personal development as much as anything. What am I going to do and why? How am I going to do it? I want to do this with my data to make this better. I'm going to measure it by this and it's going to be worth it. I have the privilege of speaking to you guys today. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day. I love sharing content like this with you, and it's a very, very short story. I realize it's been incredibly fast. Hope it was a little bit useful. But I just want to help make the best marketers and data scientists better. It's going to be measured by the success of your careers and your brands and your companies, and for me, that's worth getting out of bed for. And I'd encourage you just to go and hide away in a room at some point and just try and fill that in. It's a lot harder than it looks. Because the thing that we need to remember is that the goal in business isn't to sell to people who need what we have. It's to work with people who believe what we believe. Yeah? Thank you very much.